Yo, what up YouTube? I've been trying out a new Syndra build recently and I've been having quite a bit of success with it, as you can see. So I wanted to come make a video today to share that with you guys and maybe you can replicate it in your own games. This build in specific, I've been having quite a bit of success with it. I've only started going it a few days ago. Just as a disclaimer, this build was inspired actually by another Syndra main. You will probably know them. Showmaker. So yeah, shout out to Showmaker for this build. And this build, it might not seem like it's going to do a lot of damage, but you'll be very surprised, honestly. You will most likely top the damage charts if you play it correctly, as you can see. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to hop into the game and we're going to go over why this build is so good. And real quick guys, before we get into this, there's going to be timestamps for everything below, so if you want to skip to a specific part of the video, go ahead and do that. And this video, it's not going to be a full-on guide going over every single ability and what they do. If you want that, I actually made a video a bit ago going over every single ability and what it does, and it's more accustomed to like beginner Syndras if you're just getting into the champion. So I would definitely go watch that, link will be in the description. And yeah, so let's get into it. Okay, now going into the client, let's quickly go over the runes. So this is probably the most standard rune page for Syndra. So let's start off real quick with the shards. The two options are generally CDR or attack speed. I would always default to the attack speed personally. It makes a lot of things very awkward if you don't get the attack speed, so I'll list some of them. If you're under the turret, you can't CS properly. You can't get the casters properly without the attack speed. It won't allow you to do it. It's 2 autos to kill the caster, so if you have the attack speed, you have just enough time to kill this to get the second auto off before the turret will kill it. So that's a pretty big downside. The other downside of not going to attack speed is you will not kill the turrets as fast. It also messes up some of the trades, like when you're autoing in between very early. So that could be awkward. So this is personal preference. You could try both. I would default to attack speed. This one always go adaptive force. The other two don't even make sense really. This one, it's generally better. Like if you're gonna die, it's gonna be early as Syndra. That's like a big trend. Is your early is very weak and then you get a lot stronger. So it doesn't really make sense to go scaling unless you know like you're just never gonna die. First strike, I would only go this if I'm versus a tank. So this page in general, I would only go it if I'm versus like a Galio. The next page we're going to talk about is the one I go if I'm versus like basically anything else that's not like a Tryndamere or Galio type champion. So this is just free gold, really good if you're versus Galio and stuff. If you're versus a more aggressive champion like Orianna and they go Airy typically, you're just going to give over all the lane prio, and you really don't want to do that. So it's generally better to go more early game one like Airy or Comet. But yeah, I usually go this versus Galio and it's pretty good. Magical footwear, I would default towards cashback actually. Because of the way we're going to do this, we're going to rush boots. So you can't really do that if you go magical footwear. Triple tonic's just good. At level 9 you get free 5 splinters. Because every time you level up an ability you get 5 free splinters. So that's really nice. Level 6 and level 3 one are also very good for Syndra. Jack of Trades versus Cosmic. I would default towards Cosmic. Reason being is the flash cooldown is very, very important on Syndra because it's usually how you're going to survive most times is your flash. So lowering that cooldown is really big. This also lowers the ward cooldown early on, so you can get more wards down to like prevent jungle ganks, which is very important. This also reduces your teleport cooldown, which is very important too to get back to lane. So this is just like very, very good to like stay alive. This, you get a little bit more ability haste and slightly more damage, but with this build, you really don't lack the damage or anything. So I tend to default towards the defensive. Second rune page, I would always go mana flow personally, because I would go this versus tanks too. And even if you're like versus a squishy champion, you will eventually run out of mana. Even if you like play it perfectly and get the splinters off, you will eventually run out of mana before Lost Chapter. Even with Lost Chapter, you sometimes run out of mana. And yeah, so that's why I'd probably go this. The other option would probably be the new ult rune. It's pretty good. It reduces your cooldown and do more damage. But I think the mana is more important. And then Transcendence, you should probably just always go. CDR is really big on Syndra. Now hopping onto the main rune page. This is probably the one I'm going to go like 90% of my games. Unless I'm versus Galio. Or like maybe another tank like Tryndamere. Like something you won't kill is when you'll go first strike. If you like have any opportunity to pressure them, even if it's like an Akali who goes like Doran Shield, you should probably still go this just to like apply pressure. So going over it, Summonary, it's just consistent damage, really good. Applies on your autos. Comet has a few issues. It takes a bit longer. It does scale harder and does more damage, but the cooldown is longer and it can miss. So that's why I just prefer Airy. Okay, Mana Flow Ban versus the new rune. If you don't go Mana Flow Ban, you will eventually run out of mana. And it can cost you either a kill or you have to back early and screw over your jungler or something. So I would just default to Mana Flow Ban, honestly. The damage can be nice on this, but you're giving up quite a bit of mana, which can feel bad. Transcendence, Syndra loves CDR, so it's pretty self-explanatory to go this one. Scorch, just early game damage. It doesn't make much sense to go the other two if you're playing for lane. Triple Tonic, we went over it. Free stacks level 9. Level 6 and level 3 potion are also very good. And then, again, we're very immobile, and the way we're probably going to die is getting caught out without flash, so trying to reduce that cooldown more we can is really good. So yeah, this would be the rune page I would go in like 90% of matchups. And the harder the matchup is, so like a Fizz or something if you're struggling, I would definitely default more to go in early game to apply pressure, because if you get them low, it's less likely they'll try to go in on you, so keep that in mind. I actually forgot to go over one more keystone, Phase Rush. We actually used to go Phase Rush a bit before, but this was before they nerfed Syndra's Q a few patches back. And ever since they nerfed Syndra's Q, it hasn't felt that good to go Phase Rush. And with the build we're going to go, movement really isn't an issue anyway, so you probably should just default to the damage ones. Okay, now hopping into the game, we're going to go over the big changes of this build and why it's very good and when you should go it. So the standard Syndra build would be Ludens, Sork Boots, and then you go Magic Pen, right? And this build, it's still very good, keep in mind, like, you shouldn't, like, not go this build anymore. The way that, or the times that this build is good is when you're the only AP and you don't think they're going to go any MR at all. Maybe, like, one MR item on one person, but, like, any more, you should probably consider the new build. So, yeah. This build, it's still very, very good. Just keep in mind that, if they stack MR, you're going to lose significant value every time they build an MR item. And in my experience, whenever you play Syndra, it's like a magnet. Their mouse instantly builds the Merc Treads, and then they build like 50 MR items. So that's why this new build I've been having way more success with. Okay, now we're going to go over the new Syndra build. So the two main components are Ludens and then Cosmic. And then the big thing is, and we're going to rush these like first back, Swifty Boots. Yes, the almighty Swifty Boots. These boots will make you a cheetah, honestly. Like, once you get this, ain't nobody catching you unless you like are really caught out. So without the Cosmic, our base movement speed with the Swifties is going to be 390. So basically, like, if you rush these early, and like most people don't even rush boots, like you're not getting caught out at all. And the reason why these boots are so good is they serve as defensive and offensive, actually. So like, if we're just playing a lane, right, and I'm trying to get up my abilities on this guy and I'm just out of range like this, if you go the Swifties, it helps you a lot just going like that and getting the ability off. And like, obviously, if you're going to get ganked, you can just like walk out. Like, once you get these boots, it's very, very hard to die. Like, I've had many times like the junglers just come in, I just walk back. because the boots are just way too fast. So yeah, these boots are very, very good. And also, the reduced slow effect at the bottom is also very like handy. If you already get CC'd, the most common CC is a slow in my experience. Like there's a lot of slows in the game. And I believe this reduces Rylai's, and there's a lot of Rylai's users also, so yeah. The reduced slow is actually very massive also. And this is only the first part, so we're at like 390, right? And then you go the Cosmic right after, and then you just get 406 movement speed base. But if you hit someone with the ability, you have 424. So now you're just like completely uncatchable. Like if anyone jumps on you, you can either just eat them away or even just hit them with an ability and then you're zooming away and you'll basically never die. So yeah. That's why these two items are really good. And a big part about this too, if they stack MR, it doesn't reduce the effect of these. That's like the big part. And that's like a major issue with the Magic Pen. So yeah, these can serve as defensive and offensive. And like this even gives you HP to make you more tanky. So as you can see, like you can just use abilities way easier when you have this much movement speed. So yeah, that's why these boots are really good. And the other boot option is also CDR boots. They're not bad either. There is some issues with it. It doesn't give you a lot of CDR. They're kind of like not that powerful of boots. The main like benefit of these boots is they're very, very cheap. They're slightly cheaper than the Swifties. The Swifties are like in the middle. Sork boots cost the most, which is like a pretty big downside of it. The CDR boots are nice though, because they're really cheap. You can rush them if it's a really bad matchup, and you have slightly lower flash cooldown, and you just get a little bit more CDR, like help you survive. So that's when I would go these, honestly. Swifty boots though, I would just default to. They're like probably just the best. And then third item, from my experience, like I was talking about earlier, they will always stack MR if you play Syndra. It doesn't matter what you build, they will just always default to stacking MR. So I found Void Staff usually the best third, just to reduce all that magic resist they're gonna get. If they don't go any MR, which is like very, very rare, it's probably Deathcap third. Or you could even go like Magic Pen, since they're not going magic resist. But like I said, it's very rare they'll do that. You could also consider defensive, but honestly with this build, you're going to be so fast in kiting everyone that I don't think the defensive is going to be really that even handy, and you're better off just going more damage. Okay, we got the build down. So now let's go over what you should do in the very early parts of the lane. So this is when Syndra is the completely weakest. So like you're a scaling champion, keep this in mind. Like you are just a complete scaling champion. That's how you work. So in the early game, you honestly want to play very, very safe. And before you get the boots, that is when you're most likely going to die, if you are to die. So honestly, like if you just play very, very safe until you get the boots, that's probably the best way. But just going into the lane, if you don't think you're going to gank that often, the best thing to do, honestly, depending on the matchup, of course, is to just EQ them. And the reason why EQ is so good, it's just a free splinter that you can't miss if you know how to EQ. So it's just, you just E them and then you just Q at the end of it. And the reason it works is when you E them, they get airborne for a second, and they're technically CC'd even if you don't hit the Q. And then the time the CC ends, your Q is at the end point, and it's always the same point ends. So it always ends right there. So you just put your Q right there after the E, and you'll always get a splinter. That's why it's good. So if you try to like QE and you miss it, it's pretty hard to even hit the QE. I rarely QE, honestly. If I was, I do WE. And even this one, you gotta aim, right? You gotta hit the W, and then they're slowed, and then you can get the Q, which is pretty not bad. But like, I think EQ is way better, and it's honestly what I default to if the matchup assumes it. The only time I wouldn't EQ if they outrange me, like a Xerath or a Vel'Koz. But if it's like anything you can just go up like auto, that's when I would do it. So I'd go like this, play the lane, auto, EQ. It's just a free splinter. And there's no counterplay because they get pushed back and then you just walk back after. There is some downsides DQing though. You have to use your E obviously, and if you get ganked, you're dead. So that was a very big downside. So if you want to play really safe and it's like a pretty aggressive jungler, the best thing honestly is just a WQ. So you just throw the W backwards so it comes out slightly faster, and then Q while they're slowed. And that's what you should do in the early laning phase. And then just try to get enough gold until you get the Swifty boots. And then once you get the Swifty boots, the lane becomes way, way easier. Like, you can use your abilities so much more freely knowing that they can't even get on you, basically, if you play it correctly. You can still get ganked, but I notice if you rush these boots too, you're even less likely to get ganked. So yeah, that's what I would do in the early game. Okay, now going into the mid game, I'm gonna go over what I would usually do in the mid game. So in the mid game, I usually try to stick near the mid lane. So mid game, stick near mid lane, and the reason being is Syndra is just so much more stronger in the mid lane. So side lane, this is actually generally, if you were to die, is where you are gonna die, either by a turret dive or like an assassin using a brush or something. So you generally don't want to spend much time down here and just get the wave out and then run mid lane. Honestly, that's what I do. Obviously, defend the base. If Tryndamere is ending the game, getting all the turrets, don't let him end the game like that. Go defend if Tryndamere is splitting, but if nobody's like, if it's just like one wave, probably you can go mid lane. What I do is I just try to look for picks mid lane. So at this time in mid game, the bot laners would already be mid, and I would just be hovering over this wall, and then just looking for picks like this. Or if they're a bit farther back, I would just literally walk up and try to QE someone, and then if they get stunned, it's a free pick and they're dead most of the time. So that's generally what you want to be doing, is looking for picks in the mid lane against the enemy bot. But sometimes you do just have to get the wave spot, and that's like the correct play. But generally, Syndra is more powerful near the mid lane and getting picks with her QE with the movement speed. So like that. Okay, now let's quickly go over some of the matchups I think that are worth banning. So this is just like, if you wanted like champions, like what should I ban when I play Syndra? This is generally what a good idea, what you should ban. This is not a full tier list or anything. If you want a full tier list, consider dropping a like and a comment of what you want to see, or even another video idea. I'm down for like any video idea if you guys have any. So worst matchups. I would say the worst is probably Irelia. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Irelia. And it's just because of like her itemization, she usually stacks MR early and it really shuts you down. And she just has so much kill potential early that you have to really be like wary of. Irelia's mid, in my experience, they will usually run it down if they die a few times. So like that's how you would beat them, is you get your jungler to gank a few times and then they'll usually just run it down. So that's probably the best thing, but definitely a good ban if you need a ban. Yeah, so this is my personal ban. I think it's just a very annoying champion to go against. Reason being, I don't think he's that powerful, but his wind wall will block your E. So if you E him, QE, and that's generally how you're going to survive matchups, is stunning someone away from you, he can just straight up block it. Even the push away he can block. So if the Yasuo is good, he will always just block your E. He can also block your R, which is really bad too. And it's just, like I said, it's just a very annoying matchup. And for NA, the region I'm playing on, there's many Yasuo one tricks. Like, it's probably the most popular one trick, so it just makes more sense for me to ban it. Okay, and then another bad one is, I think, LeBlanc. This is pretty bad if the LeBlanc is good. Most people aren't that good at LeBlanc, but if you do happen to go against a good LeBlanc, it's very hard to get splinters, and that's like a common theme, is if it's a matchup that's hard to get splinters, it's a bad matchup usually. And that's usually like dash champions. So yeah, LeBlanc can like dodge all your abilities basically with her W if she's good. And she will like completely just outburst you. So yeah, I think it's a pretty bad matchup. Other matchups, Fizz is a matchup a lot of people struggle with. It's seen as a very common matchup. In my experience, I don't think Fizz is that strong. His weakness is he's an assassin, so his laning phase is always going to be weak. So the best way to beat Fizz is you punish him super hard, deny as much CS as you can, go early game runes, and try to deny as much CS before he hits 6. Once he hits 6, if he Rs you, you're just going to die if he's near your turret, or if you're near his turret, I meant. And the best way to prevent that is just to stick more near your turret and pretty far back and anticipate getting ready to dodge the R. It's not that bad of a matchup if you punish him really early. I think there is one more matchup. It's pretty bad. Actually, Echo is another matchup I see a lot of people struggling with. It's very similar to Fizz. He has a very weak early, so if you punish him before 6 and use your E correctly, it's really not that bad. You just gotta be careful. If you E him and he E's at the same time, your E will go through him, or like he'll like pass through your E. It's like a flash, and you just won't even use your E at all. So you gotta be careful doing that. Okay, I think Zed is another matchup a lot of Syndra seem to struggle with. I don't think it's personally that bad of a matchup, but I can definitely see why. The main way you're going to beat him is you got to be very cautious of how you use your E. You want to not use your E until his shadow disappears. And once his shadow disappears, if your jungler is anywhere nearby, that's also the time you would gank him. If he's using his W like off cooldown. Try to never R him too, unless you're out of range until after he Rs. But generally just don't even R him until he Rs first. And it's usually not that bad of a matchup if you play it like that. So these are probably the worst matchups for Syndra. Any of these as a ban would be pretty good. Okay, but that's going to be all for today, guys. Just wanted to make a quick guide going over new build we've been cooking with. Shout out to Showmaker again. That's who we got this idea from. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a sub, dropping a like, all that stuff. If you want to come watch us, we're going to be live on Twitch. We're usually daily, so come hop by and say hi.
This is your moment, now is your time, so prove yourself and